Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Psychology Today. My name is Ann Morrow, and this is my co-host, Bruce Buffington.
And you'll see me later.
These shows focus on cycling in general and bicycle safety in particular. We air live on the third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon Channel 22. Replays can be seen on CCTV in Salem and TVCTV in Washington County.
I would like to welcome our viewers in Salem at CCTV. They've been joining us for several months now. And I'd like to thank our crew here at TVCTV. They're all volunteer crew, and they work very hard to bring this programming to you. Well, you know, we have a very special guest. We have Oliver Butch Martin and his racing team of young men. And so we're going to get a chance to interview those individuals. It's going to be both Ann and myself. And we have a special guest over in our event corner who I will introduce later on. But, Ann, we were talking earlier, and you told me you had a chance to get out and ride this fall.
Yes, yeah, I've gotten in some good fall riding lately.
Well, I've been doing basically small group rides, but I did something this past week or so that really, really challenged me.
What was that, Bruce?
And that was the Harvest Festival. Do you know that ride?
The Harvest Century, yes. I've heard about that. Did that start at Shampooey Park?
It started at Shampooey Park, and one of the things I didn't know, well, I signed up for the shorter ride. Then I thought, oh, you know, maybe I can do the longer one, which was a 70-miler. Then they have the Century, which is 100 miles. So at the mile marker where you could go to the 70 or do the 45, I went with this real friendly group and I did the 45. But what I didn't know until I got to the first rest stop was that ride was shorter, but it was the hardest one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I haven't ridden like that in a couple of years. But I'm none worse for the wear.
Good.
Now, we have a special guest with us right now. Her name is Kelly Peterson, and she's the assistant manager of REI Streets of Tannisbourne store. And if you don't know where Streets of Tannisbourne is, that's in Hillsborough, and she has a special presentation to make to Northwest Bicycle Safety Council. So we'd like to invite Kelly up on stage.
Well, thank you, Bruce and Ann. On behalf of the Hillsborough REI store, I would like to present you with a $5,000 grant for your hard work educating and promoting cyclists and bicycle safety in the community, and especially your work that you do with the youth in the community with bike safety. Just to give you a little background on our grant process, each REI store has employees that can nominate these groups to receive these awards. And in our store, we had a few people nominate your group to receive this grant. And so we thank you for all of your hard work promoting bike safety in the community.
Well, thank you, and I'll tell you, I really appreciate the fact that we got nominated, and not only being nominated, but actually receiving this grant. Now, you know, we've already put this money to work. We started with one of the elementary schools in the Beaverton School District, where we had a very successful bicycle safety fair. And now REI doesn't just give out money. You actually had some tech support there that helped with the adjustment and maintenance of bicycles, and along with some helmet fittings that we did. I mean, it's just really a very successful program, and little known that REI has been involved for several years in our bicycle safety fairs and has brought techs out for their expertise to work alongside volunteers to adjust these kids' bikes. And what a joy to see the smiles on these kids' faces when they get their bike tuned up for the first time. And I heard comments like, well, if it wasn't for you, REI, I wouldn't have been able to ride my bike because some of those bikes were in such bad shape. We appreciate your support. Also, along with the Portland Wheelman Touring Club, Beaverton Optimist Club. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of people that come out to those and support those events, but you guys have really been in the forefront. And thank you very much for this. I'm going to put this here for now, but we were talking about some of the recreational things that people do with bicycles. I know REI is a all-around recreational type store. In fact, that's what it is, recreational Inc. So anyway, we have some new and emerging rides that we do. Now, Ann and I are both ride leaders for Portland Wheelman Touring Club. And there are a couple rides that we do, and I work under Ann when I do the welcome rides. You want to tell her a little bit about those for recreational rides?
Well, welcome rides for Portland Wheelman, the idea is that you're welcoming new riders. And people should be able to ride 13 to 15 miles an hour on the flats and ride approximately 25 to 30 miles. And so they're slow paced, they're social rides so that you can talk about, you know, the gear and the bicycle and the gearing and, you know, shifting and different events and that sort of thing. And so that's the idea of welcome rides. Obviously, they're not quite for novices because that's kind of a fast pace and a long distance for a real novice rider. But they are a good way to get started in some good road riding.
And for the novice rides and the youth rides, I mean, we have several rides going through Northwest Bicycle Safety Council. We have the Women on Wheels for new and emerging riders, and we show them safe places to ride. The senior rollers, who are over 55, and some of those guys are like 80 years of age. In fact, one of the producers here at TVCTV, he's 80 years old, and he just started riding, and what a joy to see. And we also have the kids camps. When you're talking about the youth programs, along with clinics, bicycle safety fairs, the educational classes that we put on, we also have rides during the summertime for our kids. And we target kids under 12 and their families, but we also service youth under 16 with the helmet law because our law requires the youth under 16, as you know, in the state of Oregon, to wear a helmet. And that's a little different over in Vancouver.
Vancouver just passed a law, and everyone that's on wheels, rollerblades or whatever, needs to have a helmet on. Adults, kids, everybody.
So we rode to Vancouver yesterday, the senior rollers. This was on Monday. We went over the I-5 bridge. We all had our helmets on, so we were legal when we arrived on the other side of the bridge.
That's right, if you stayed in the Vancouver city limits.
So Kelly, you've been on the show before, Women on Bikes. So you have a real good understanding about the cycling community, how important it is to get youth out and recreate. Can you tell us a little bit about some of this stuff?
Well, the show that we did earlier with you guys was getting women actually out and comfortable riding on their bikes and just the basic essentials that they need to have a comfortable ride. And we do some of those clinics in the store for those people that just want to get into it and they have questions, they want to know what they need to wear, that kind of thing. And then we had the opportunity to come on your show and talk a little bit about that on a broader scale. So it was great.
And the other thing, I saw you just recently at the REI Community Celebration. I was very impressed as to the magnitude of REI's outreach to the community. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Well, every year we have a community event that we will do at one of the stores, and basically it's an event where we invite our partners, and some of those partners are nonprofit groups or clubs or just people that we do a little bit of business with and that kind of thing. And it's basically kind of a networking, sharing of ideas. A lot of groups get together and they actually partner together after attending this community event. So last night it was Sunday night. We had some presenters that came up and told us about some of the programs that they run through their groups, and food and drink, and it's a fun event.
What I liked was that the presentations were short, to the point, and very informative, and they kept the program moving because you had to get so much in. But there's also a lot of talk about youth. fact, the Community Cycling Center was talking about the holiday bike drive coming up and some of the needs there. And you participated in that and have had a long-standing relationship with that, haven't you?
Yeah, the Community Cycling Center is a group that we've actually been involved with for several years now, and they just do a fabulous job taking in old bikes and refurbishing them and then giving them to people that need those small little kids that need those bikes. And it's just great to see their faces when they receive those bikes. And we do drives to pick up those bikes from our people in the community, and then we just work with Community Cycling Center to get those out to those kids. So we really do enjoy being partners with Community Cycling Center as well.
And you also kind of rub shoulders with Portland Wellman Touring Club, the STP.
Well, yeah.
They're the bike techs out there, yeah.
REI is a big promoter of STP, and in fact, I was just talking to Kelly about REI in the Pearl District is proposing that maybe the Portland Wheelmen and REI can join together maybe in 2009 to do some training rides to help people that set that goal of doing the STP, that is Seattle to Portland Bicycle Classic, to train for that. Because if you're a real new rider, you might want to do that ride, but you're not quite sure how to get yourself there. So maybe we can put something together and help people build their cycling endurance up.
Well, you touch the entire community basically, whether they're motoring, whether they're biking, or walking. My wife and I are both walkers, and some of those walks start from the REI store at the Pearl, but I did do one that started from Streets of Tannisbarn. And since I drive, bike, and walk, unlike you probably drive, bike, walk, and play soccer.
Okay.
And bus.
And bus.
Yes.
Well, Kelly, it's a pleasure. We're happy to receive this award, and I know we'll do it justice. We're going to make an awful lot of kids and their families real happy this year and into 2009, and really appreciate the grant. And you let everybody know over there at the store how much we appreciate it. And if you're wondering why Ann and I are receiving the award, I'm on the executive board of the Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, and Ann is on the advisory board, so it's appropriate that we would both be in receipt of this award, wouldn't you think?
Yes.
Well, thank
you
very
for
much.
having me.
All right. Well, you have some questions for me.
Well, Bruce, you're always talking about bicycle safety. And you're saying if you're going to obey the law, you need to know the law. So let's talk a little bit about a couple of laws, just to help all of us understand.
And you're going to talk and I'm going to listen.
I'm going to quiz you.
Oh, wait a minute. No, you didn't tell me that.
Yep.
Not for real.
Yep, I'm going to ask you real questions here.
And okay. Uh-oh.
Well, now this came up, there was a letter to the editor in my local newspaper, the Columbian, and it was a citizen saying, you know, when I was growing up, my parents taught me to walk along the wrong side of the road, and so bicyclists should ride their bikes on the wrong side of the road, and they shouldn't be on the right side of the road.
If I'm not mistaken, the Columbian is in Vancouver.
That's right.
They might do it that way over there. But in Oregon, the law requires you to go with the traffic when you're driving your bicycle. You're subject to the same laws and rules as a motor vehicle. I think some people get confused with what you stated, that when you're walking out on a road, excluding sidewalks, when you're walking on the road, you walk against traffic. But when you're driving your bike, yes, driving your bike, then you go with the flow of traffic.
Okay. Well,
Does that answer your question?
It makes sense to me, but
will that help those people out in Vancouver?
I hope so. I hope that enlightens them.
And how do you drive your bike? Which way do you go?
I try to stay with traffic, and I try to pretend like I'm a car.
That's right. Exactly. That you've done good. Okay. Did I pass?
You did.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to ask you one more question.
Just one more. Okay.
Now, riding bikes with groups, Bruce, I see people using both hands, both arms, to signal turns on the bicycle. Is that the way you should do it, or should you just be using the left arm to signal? What's the law?
Well, the law in Oregon is that you're required to signal, even on a bicycle. Okay, and I know what signals you're referring to when they're signaling with both hands. Now, just as a demonstration, you can use your left hand to signal and communicate to motorists and other bicyclists that you are making a right turn. But in Oregon, it is acceptable to use your left or your right arm to signal that you're making a right turn. You can also signal with hand signals from your car. However, I don't know if signaling a right turn with your right hand would work, and you'd probably want to use this one.
The old-fashioned way.
And that's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Did I pass?
Yes, you passed. You passed. It's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
You're always preaching to us.
Yes, you know, that's right. In order to obey the law, you have to know the law. And even when you travel, like when we go over to Vancouver, we had to know that a helmet was required for everyone. Well, how did we know that? We took the initiative and we found out. You can get information from the internet, from newspapers, from the Department of Transportation in both states, whether it's Oregon or Washington. Local law enforcement, you can make a phone call, make an inquiry and say, hey, I want to ride my bike over in Vancouver, and what's the law over there? What's required? And one of the things they would probably tell you first is that you must wear a helmet. And that's a start.
Yeah. And regardless of where you go, it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea. In Oregon, under 16, you must wear a helmet, but over in Vancouver, it's a little different.
Yeah, we all do.
Everyone. Doesn't matter how old you are.
That's
so
right.
If our 80-year-old cyclists want to go to Vancouver,
they
must
better
have a
their
helmet. And if I was 80 years old, I'd wear my helmet now, but at 80, I'd definitely be wearing my helmet.
Probably all the time.
All the time. Well, we have another special guest tonight. His name is Steve Wabnitz, and Steve is from Century 21. He's also a member of the Beaverton Optimist Club. He is going to give us some tidbits in the Northwest Bicycle Safety Council event corner. And why a real estate agent giving some tidbits on bike safety in the events corner? Well, we'll let Steve tell you, so take it away, Steve.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Ann. And appreciate giving an opportunity here to talk to you folks. One thing I'd like to say too is that Bruce mentioned that they did a bike safety council event at a local elementary school. My daughter goes to Chehalem Elementary School, and so we missed that event, but we had actually gone to one at the PALS Club, the Police Athletic League, and my kids enjoyed that so much. By the way, I have 6 kids. 3 little ones. So the 3 little ones had that opportunity, and they were really kind of sad that they weren't able to go to the second one. So, but with that, I wanted to start off to kind of bring this into a real estate forum, you know, especially in light of today's economy and also those, you know, folks who want to save on gas, as well as the health and exercise benefits of bicycling, trying to combine a place where you live with an opportunity to commute to work. So I wanted to give a quick joke though. It's about a mountain biker and a racing cyclist and also a car commuter. They all work at the same workplace. And they were discussing who was the, you know, was it a very smart thing to do this bicycle commuting? And they were at this restaurant, and the mountain biker said, you know something? I can prove that we're the smartest ones. He said, you see that fish aquarium over there with all the fancy fish in it? He says, watch this. So he goes up that aquarium, puts his forehead against the glass and concentrates for about a minute. Sure enough, all the fish get to the bottom of the aquarium, start going around like they're on a cycle path. Perfect precision. He comes back and says, well, that proves the power of the superior bicyclist mind. Now the cyclist racer says, well, let me try that. Same thing. Minute goes by, fish go to the bottom of the glass, and this time they're in perfect precision figure eights. Now the guy that's commuting by car, he's watched some races, and he says, well, let me try that. And he goes up and he puts his forehead against the glass and he concentrates. Minute goes by, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Fish just swimming every which way, helter-skelter. Finally, he turns back to the other 2 guys and he goes, okay, that's where you push the laugh button. At any rate, I think it is a smart thing if you're able to commute to work on a bicycle because of all those benefits we already talked about. And then I thought back to when I commuted some years ago, 29 years ago. It was at a time where I'd newlywed, so we only had 1 car. My wife worked, and I had a job about 5 miles away. I had this old bicycle, 3-speed, stuck in 3rd gear, which really built my muscles up. And at the time, that was important to me. Okay, it's still important to me. At any rate, the commute was not one that I would call safe by any standard. There were no bicycle paths, there was no safety trails to get onto. Basically, I think I kind of took my life into my own hands. We didn't have bicycle safety helmets back then either. I guess you could get a motorcycle helmet, or since I was working construction, I had my hard hat. Fortunately, it was a bright baby blue, and I thought, well, that's going to help. And I did that commute for some times, and still remember it today because I think I had a couple close calls. At any rate, now with my kids all having bicycles and a chance to use those in our neighborhood, the other important part of maybe choosing a home where you can take those benefits, I live in Beaverton near Weissmer Park, which is a dirt path where my 5-year-old jumps the path and does all kinds of great stuff on. It's been some time as I help people find homes that they like to have cul-de-sacs for the safety of their children who play on the cul-de-sacs and so forth. Now, as we look at how to get from your workplace to home and so forth, what I wanted to mention too is you have a new opportunity, especially here with Metro, and since I have been a realtor for some time and work with developers and a lot of the municipalities, a big part of their priority is connectivity of bike paths. You see that in the city of Portland, you see that all throughout the metro area. One of the newest things in Beaverton is the train that will connect Tigard to Wilsonville. At the Tigard terminal, it's only about a block to the Fano Creek Trail, which is I think 16 some miles. So you have opportunities throughout the metro area for connecting to either a path such as the Fano Creek Path, Springwater Corridor, which is 21 miles, or you might just want to have a scenic path that might not necessarily connect you directly, but you can get to the light rail and in that way reach your workplace. I guess the benefit would be if you take all of those things together and then combine it with maybe the most important thing, which is what type of home do you want, and then you have someone help you to locate those properties in conjunction with light rail, bike paths, and so forth. And I did want to mention that if you wanted to go online, the internet, portlandonline.com, or just put in bike paths, Beaverton Bike Paths Portland, and you'll get a number of places where you can go with color-coded maps of the bike paths, trails, and safety corridors for you to use. So I want to thank you again, Bruce and Ann, for allowing me this opportunity, and with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you, Steve, and I'll tell you what, don't go into comedy. Just keep your day job. And I think at the next Optimist Club meeting, you should be fined for that joke. Anyway, good job on that, and thank you for sharing. Well, Ann is going to kick things off with our special guest, Oliver Butch Martin, and she has a few questions to start us off.
Okay. Well, and we can call you Butch, is that okay?
You sure can.
Okay. And Butch, a bicycle has been part of your life, pretty much the majority of your life. You are a bicyclist and you coach and you are a bicyclist. So I know that I wasn't here then, but Bruce says that you were a guest back in February of 2007. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing between then and now?
Well, I continued to coach a bicycle racing team, and last fall we decided to expand the team in terms of a youth program, basically a developmental program. And we have 3 young men here who are on the team, and the team's been very, very successful. In fact, I say this unabashedly, this is probably the best team in the Northwest and very possibly the best team in the country. These young men have all been athletes in other sports, but are all dedicated to bicycle racing, and they've all become champions. So that's what we've been doing, and via these young men, we've carried Oregon's name all around the country as a place that is producing top flight athletes.
I think I'd like to ask a question. Now, one would ask, well, okay, so you have this cycling team, and so what qualifies you to be their coach? And my understanding is that you were inducted in the National Bicycle Racing Hall of Fame in 2005, and have had a lot of titles yourself. In fact, this poster here depicts one such race. Can you share a little bit about that race with us?
That one took place in Canada, in the province of Quebec, and I was captain of the United States national team in the event, and that was the last stage. I was in a breakaway with two other fellas, and it rained. I crashed, got back up, caught the fellow who continued on his way, and dropped him, and finished by myself. And for me, that was probably a highlight as far as an individual effort. But the team won the overall, and we won the individual also, so that made it all the better.
So that's impressive. Now there's some other accolades you have. Olympic coach?
Well, I was on two Olympic teams. I was on the road team in 1968 and the track team in 1964. I went to Japan and Mexico City. I was also on the Pan Am team that went to Colombia in 1971. And then I had the honor of being appointed U.S. National Road Coach and Olympic coach and World Championship coach. So over the years, I've had a lot of high-level competition as an athlete, but even higher as a coach.
Now, I have a note here that says you retired from coaching, and yet I don't see any evidence of that.
Well, about 3 years ago, I came back. I made my 102nd comeback, and it's been really a really nice experience for me. There was a gap of time, but coming back and getting involved with racing once again got me all charged up. And I have to say that my young guys here really are a big push for me in terms of keeping me motivated and enthused, because they have such enthusiasm for the sport. They're all really nice people and superior athletes. And for a coach, you can't ask for anything more than that.
Now, if Ann will allow me one more question, I don't want to. I have to put something in proper perspective, because there's someone that we wouldn't want to leave out of the equation, and that's your wife, Rebecca, a champion herself, I understand. Yes,
Rebecca was a U.S. National Road Champion for 2 years in a row. She was also a member of the U.S. National Team for 7 years. And she allows me to do this.
And she was on 5 World Champion teams, too,
yes.
I understand. Well, with that, Ann, I'll tell you, oh, there's so much.
There is. There is. We could talk forever with you. I did come up with some questions, though. I have some. I'm not a bike racer, so you know, some of this might not be so.
Although she's dropped me a couple of times on rides.
But what are some of your, you know, you are a bicyclist. You yourself ride a bike. And so you're talking about how you're kind of re-enthused about all of this. What are some of your cycling goals, and how do you plan to achieve them? Because a lot of our viewers, I don't think, are necessarily racers, but the things that go into your, you know, setting goals and achieving them are things that maybe some of us could apply to our cycling too.
Well, one thing, it's healthy. And for me, about a year ago, I'd put on more weight than I wanted. And I naturally gravitated back to the bicycle. And it's been a real good exercise, or form of exercise for me. And the big benefits are in the cardiovascular system. So there's the connect with pulmonary, or your lungs, and your heart. And if you can keep your heart strong, you got a good chance to be around here for a little bit longer. Another thing is that we live in an incredible cycling habitat. Oregon's got everything. We've got hills, we've got valleys, we've got high desert, low desert. We've got everything here. So getting out into the country has been really nice. I just enjoy it. It's very invigorating, and I got to tell you, I see a lot of people on bicycles now, much more than I've ever seen before. And It's always been a goal of mine to try to help people get more acquainted with the bicycle. And I got to tell you, Portland and this area is just solid as far as a bicycle community and environment.
Now again, not coming from a racing perspective, and you say that. So Portland itself is such a bicycling community. There's all kinds of bicyclists. But how does Portland and Oregon stand out as far as racing in the United States or even internationally?
Oregon's got more bicycle racing than any other state in the entire country. From the third week in February to the middle of September, you can race basically every day in Oregon. Racers come from other regions, other states, simply because we have such a strong program of racing. International events, there's the Mount Hood race and the Cascade Classic that attract top flight professional fields and foreign teams that come in to race these two particular stage races. So as a mecca for cycling, Oregon has hit it 100%. Whether you're an amateur or professional, we've got everything here for you.
Well, we're going to be talking to your team members here and about their accomplishments and what they've got in mind. I've got some other questions for you, and you and I talked previously, and I'd really like you to share your story about your first bicycle. Tell us about that. You know, a lot of people that are baby boomers remember getting their first bicycle, and it's a very memorable childhood experience, and you have a particularly good story, if you'd share that with us.
I was about 11 years old and had never had a bicycle prior to that, and the pastor of a church that I attended told my dad that, well, there was this old junker in the basement, and if I wanted it, it would be mine. So I just had to go over there and get it. Well, I'm from New York, and this was in the borough of the Bronx, probably about 10 miles away from where I lived, but took the bus over, got this old junker, and believe me, it was an old junker. It weighed more than I did. And I rode it all the way back home, and it was a feat, dodging cars, buses, going over trolley tracks, cobbles, the whole works. But I have to say that it was my introduction to bicycle riding, and because that first ride was so long, it really sort of started to enamor me with the bike, in that you know, I hadn't been in anything except for a car, maybe for over an hour, and I just sort of felt this natural inclination to keep doing it, and I did.
That's just such a fun story. So our show is a lot about safety. We try to promote bicycle safety. As a coach, what do you teach your team about bicycle safety?
Well, bicycle riding is pretty dangerous, and from a coaching standpoint, I always want to make sure that my boys are safe. They always wear their helmets. They wear bike gloves. They don't ride aggressive out there with cars. They make sure they stay to the extreme right when they're on the road. And because bike racers go a little faster than normal riders, sometimes that is a problem for people in cars, because they just don't believe you can go 25 miles an hour.
I've seen that firsthand, yes.
So it's really important for them, to follow all the rules, and also make sure that they're simply not riding overly aggressive. Okay, because again, you're dealing with motorists; they're just not used to it. For them to pass a bike rider at 35 miles an hour was not a normal thing, but bike riders can go that fast, and our guys always behave out on the road very cautiously, because you can't take that chance. One fall, for them, the career is over.
Yes.
Okay, so it's very important that they ride safely, and I mean this goes for anyone who rides a bicycle. I mean you have to be very, very careful. Remember, you're 5 or 6 feet off the ground. You are soft compared to a car, the road, rocks. You just have to be a little bit more cautious than normal, and if you're going at speed, even more so.
Are you suggesting that the bicyclist is a vulnerable user of the road?
Yeah,
I would agree with
yeah,
that. Yes,
it can be. I'll give you for instance, I got hit and run by a taxi cab in New York City when I was 16 years old, and I got hit again, separated a shoulder and cracked 3 ribs on a training ride. So, you know, I've had my encounters, and because I was young and kind of knew how to fall, which is important, and knew what angle to turn in, I kind of saved myself from something worse. But it is really dangerous out there, and you just have to understand, you know, what you're doing, and always play it cautiously.
Now, we've been talking about your team and your young racers, but we haven't met them yet. And Ann, did you have any more questions for
No, let's meet some of the team.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead and do the introductions, Butch.
Jacob Raffy on the left, Marcel Delisser in the middle, and Austin Arguello on the right. All 3 are Portland High School students, Lincoln and Central Catholic and Benson. There we go. Okay. And all 3 have done other sports at reasonably high levels, but they gravitated to bicycle racing, and they're champions. I mean, they are the best of the best. So they're all road riders. That is, they do distance events. They also partake on the track. Jacob a bit more than the others. So he rides on the velodrome at Alpenrose, and have all accomplished significant things as cyclists, which I'm sure they can.
Yes, I'd like to hear from each one of them. I'll let you go first, Ann.
Okay. Well, Jacob, let's start with you. Why do you ride a bike? And you participated in other sports? Why did you choose cycling?
Well, I've always, loved to ride the bike. I played baseball, soccer, basketball, but, I always would rather have been riding my bike, racing. So, ever since I was, 10, it's just kind of what I've been doing. So.
Well, at 10 years of age, you decided to get into cycling, and then you thought about racing. Where did you start? I mean, how did you get your information and your bike and learn what you needed to do?
Well, when I was 10, I did my first mountain bike race, and that's, probably, good for the beginning, rider. It's, relatively safe compared to, no cars or anything. And there'd be flyers at bike shops, and that's basically where we saw where the races were and stuff.
I think that's pretty impressive for a 10-year-old to pursue something like that.
Yeah, and to stick with it. Yeah. Now, Marcel, we talked earlier on the show about welcome rides and 30 miles and 13 to 15 miles an hour. What would your typical ride be? How far do you go? How fast do you go?
It all depends. Depends on what races we're building up to during the season. Right now we're starting the off season, so we're riding a little less. We're not racing till February, so there's really no need to be training super hard or super long rides right now. But as we get into later into November, December, January, we'll be doing a lot longer rides. 2-3 hours on the bike at a time. We'll be, doing a lot more high intensity. So, your lungs will be burning a little bit, your legs will be on fire. And just kind of getting ready for the season, making sure that, your fitness is really in top form. So when you, start racing, super competitively around the country, you know, you're confident and you're ready to go.
Okay. Austin, looking back on this last year, what would you point to as your biggest accomplishment this past biking season?
I would say in September I was invited to go to Europe with the U.S. national team. And it wasn't something I'd expected because I'm still fairly new at racing. This was only my second year, so I was real excited for the privilege, and it was a great opportunity.
Now, Marcel mentioned that, you know, your legs scream at you and, you know, there's a little pain involved in racing, whereas some of us kind of try to avoid that element. How do you overcome that mentally? What do you say to yourself internally to overcome that and keep riding through the pain?
I would say I just kind of, like at races, I want to get a good result, and just like when I'm out training, I just remember that it all goes for a good cause, so I'll push myself that much harder. Or in a race, like there's an attack and people are going all out. I just have a lot of power mentally just because I'm motivated to do well.
Okay. Jacob, if money was no object and you could have any bike you wanted, what would that bike be?
Watch out now, you got to sponsor.
Of course, I'd want a Giant. I have plenty of Giant bikes sitting around my house, and they're definitely, you know, top racing machines for, you know, plenty good for me.
I was just gonna say, so you already feel like you've got pretty much top of the line. You've got what
definitely.
you need as far as equipment.
Yeah.
So what's the composition of your bike? Is it aluminum, carbon fiber?
Well, the frame and the fork is all carbon fiber, and then, you know, I have, you know, different wheels that I ride for different races, you know, or training. And I have one pair of wheels that has carbon rims, and they're really light and fast. But then mostly the rest of the bike is either going to be aluminum or titanium.
What about your components in your drivetrain? What are you working with there?
Most of the drivetrain is either aluminum or, you know, steel, you know, or titanium.
Any particular brand you like over another?
You know, we use Shimano drivetrains.
So probably the Altegra.
No.
No.
We all have the Dura-Ace.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that
No,
one. That one's above Altegra, that's for sure.
That's right.
So what kind of titles do you hold, or have you shot for?
Well, I've shot for plenty of them, but I guess the only title I have, you know, when I was 15, I won nationals on the track, you know, in one event, and you know, it was really cool for me. But early, you know, probably the biggest race I won this year was the World's qualifying race. The winner went to the World Championships in South Africa, and that was, you know, my biggest result this year.
And I understand all three of you are 17 and in high school,
Yeah.
so that's pretty impressive. And how about you, Marcel? What kind of bike you have? And
I ride the same as these two. I have a Giant and Shimano drivetrain. So we're sponsored by Giant, which is great because their bikes are unbelievable. And you know, now being sponsored by Hammer is also unbelievable, considering the fact that their product is really, really good.
I'm glad you mentioned Hammer. I dropped the ball on writing the outline, and I didn't give the show a title. So just moments before we went on, we decided to call the show the Hammer Time Racers. And I hope you don't mind. Well, since Mother Ann is taking wish lists on the ultimate dream bike, what's your ultimate dream bike?
I don't know. There's a lot. I mean, I literally go on all day. I mean, like Jake said, Giant's right up there. Specialized is another really good company. Cervelo is another really good company. They're from Canada. But I mean, you know, what we have now, I mean, you can't really go wrong. It's really good.
I didn't realize that you were already so well outfitted. That maybe wasn't a great question because you don't really have the dream bikes. I mean, you already have the dream bikes, so you don't have to fantasize.
Well, we thought you were offering up some bikes.
Oh, no. No, maybe I should go see them.
Yeah, we need
what their little herds are that I might be able to borrow.
We need to visit these guys.
Well, Marcel, you talked about being in the off season. What about cross training then? Do you do other things when you're not focusing so much on the bike to stay in shape that maybe some of us could incorporate into our lives too?
I mean, personally, you know, when the snow falls, I love to go Nordic skiing.
Oh.
I love the snow. I love the mountain. It's nice to kind of get your mind off the bike for a little bit, because it can get a little bit repetitive because the season is so long. Swimming is another great aspect. It's really good for the cardiovascular system, like Butch said. And you know, running a little bit, it's okay, but you know, skiing and swimming are really my two favorites for cross training.
I want you to know that, to Ann's credit, she's a fairly good cyclist. She not only rides a tandem, but on a single, she's pretty good too. I've ridden with her before, and she's dropped me like the plague a few times. I should know what kind of bike she has.
I'm sure I couldn't even ride with these guys. So, okay, Jacob, if there's other young people out there that are thinking about starting racing, what advice would you give? I mean, you kind of went into how you got into this sport, but what advice could you give somebody, things that you've learned along the way that you could pass on?
Well, you know, just start doing it. I mean, if you like doing it, then it's really not that hard to get into. I mean, it definitely takes some money, or, you know, yeah, but, you know, just start racing, you know, get into it, find a team. You know, there are plenty of teams in the area that can set you up and, you know, kind of let you know the ground rules and get you into it pretty easily.
And Austin, how about you? Did you mountain bike at first when you were younger? Is that how you started? How did you get going?
Actually, I was a runner. I ran cross country and track for about 5 years. And I ended up having a stress fracture.
Wow.
So I had to ride a bike to stay in shape because there's no impact. And then so I started doing a little bit of racing in 2006 for cyclocross, but really got into it in 2007 just because I really like just getting out on the road and riding. So I ended up hanging up the cleats from running.
That's a big step. Did you have trouble with that, or you just loved cycling so much that it was easy to say goodbye?
It took a while for me to really understand that I really had the passion to race bikes. So I would say 6 to 8 weeks. I would be like, do I want to go running today or riding today? But eventually, as I started racing more and more, running started going to the back of my mind. And then I don't run much anymore, so.
And how about you? Do you do any kind of cross training if you don't run so much?
I do a lot of plyometrics and core work to stay in shape during the off season. And I still do a little bit of running. Like I'll go out sometimes a couple days a week and slog some miles in, and then I swim as well. I used to swim competitively.
We have some conflicting times left in our schedule. Well, I got the 10-minute warning, and our clock is flashing all over the place. I don't know, so we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on the time. But with the time that we have left, what are some of the future goals you guys have for next year? You say you're going to start again in February. What's on the horizon?
Well, I'd like to just continue to improve in local races, and if I get the opportunity to compete again in Europe, it'd be like a privilege, and I'll look at that as to improve a lot over there. But then at nationals is the immediate goal. Like domestically, I'd like to improve upon my performance this last year.
And how about you, Marcel?
You know, a lot of what Austin said. Also, just you know, really the local races show up and have good performances at. You know, represent our sponsors really well, obviously, and you know, just continue to make improvements every week, every month. I mean, the sport is so complex and so challenging. You know, every time, no race is really the same. So, you know, you can do one race one way and another race completely different. So I'm just really, you know, just wanting to take it one race at a time.
And are we looking at both velodrome races and road races? Is there anything happening that you're doing at PIR or any of those kinds of things, or is this really the big stuff?
Our program basically starts on the road in open races. These are the more important races that people come from different parts of the state and outside of the state to race in. We have also a series of events, Metro League events here at PIR that are run every week from mid-April to about middle of September. Also, Mount Tabor has a series of events right in town. We also have the velodrome, and all of the boys have ridden on the velodrome. Jacob, he won a national title as a velodrome rider, and had some very good placings at the 17-18 Nationals this year in California. So the track is good for bike handling skills, for speed, and I encourage them to do track racing, but all of my guys are primarily road racers, distance riders for the most part.
Now, I've seen you out on the road a time or two.
Yeah, you sure
working
have.
out. Yeah, I was surprised. I go, hey, I'm out here with the big boys. Now, I noticed that a couple of weeks ago, you were mentioning that sometimes motorists have trouble with racers as they're moving down the road and they ride in a pack, not necessarily a pace line, but a pack. And so what are your instructions when you're out on the roads like that, especially out in Washington County area where you don't have wide shoulders or anything like that?
Well, when we get together or the boys are out training, it's usually 2 up. If there's a truck or something behind, normally the rider at the end will give a heads up to the fellows in front. And for the most part, we try to do a single file just to let the truck back, because some of the roads are pretty narrow. But in general, it's a 2 up, and they stay close. I mean, they're 6 to 8 inches apart, shoulder to shoulder, so that we're not taking up too much of the roadway. And we're always cognizant of what's around us. And I think, that's as a general rule for cyclists. Just, you got to hear things. I don't let them ride with, iPods or anything like that, okay? Because you have to hear what's going on. If there's a truck behind you, you want to know it, okay? And I think again, the roads around here are great, but a lot of them are pretty narrow in terms of lane width. So you got to kind of ride accordingly. But we don't encourage big packs and taking up lanes, because not only is it dangerous, but you tee off the motorist, and right. Again, we have to keep in their graces, so to speak.
Well, one thing I was glad to hear is that you communicate and you ride in the Portland Wheelman Touring Club and Northwest Bicycle Safety Council teach people how to ride in groups. And that's one of the things we give, what the responsibility of the person in the front has for calling out hazards, and the responsibility of the person at the rear for approaching traffic. And I'm really glad to hear that you do that, because I have seen where these racers go by in these packs. In fact, they kind of create a draft that kind of rocks you a little bit, and you've got motorists honking their horn, and they don't seem to get over in any kind of other formation and stay right where they are, especially out on West Union.
Oh yeah.
I won't name any teams, but I think you've probably observed that kind of stuff yourself.
A lot of it. It is. It's hairy, and they write tickets, the police, also.
Yes,
and,
they do.
In North Plains, they write big tickets.
Yes.
Stop sign means stop.
Yes, and in Beaverton, stop means stop. In fact, in the state of Oregon, stop means stop, whether you agree with it or not. If you don't agree with it, take it up with your legislator. But stop means stop. That's what helps keep us safe, when you agree. Well, we've got about 4 minutes left, or just a little under. And so what other questions do you have, Ann?
Well, I'd like to ask Butch, what do you think about Lance Armstrong coming back to the tour?
Actually, the last thing I read, he will not do the tour. He is going to do the Tour of Italy, the Giro d'Italia, because there would be an evident conflict with Alberto Contador, who is their top stage race rider, and he is going for a second win in the Tour de France. And if Lance were doing that particular event, there was going to be a problem. So it seems that the manager sorted everything out, and Lance will do the Giro, and Alberto will do the Tour de France. And it should be really exciting. Everybody's questioning whether or not Lance is got the goods after 3 or 4 years off the bike, and time will tell, but he will start his season officially in January in Australia. In the first big stage race down there, and we'll get a good idea how he's coming along, but it's a big stretch, 3 or 4 years from cycling, or off the bike from cycling, and I think everyone's wondering, you know, if he's really going to be able to do it again.
We have a little over 2 minutes left, so some parting words, maybe some advice to some young people on how to get started. Jacob, what would you advise some of our young viewers?
You know, just have fun riding a bike. You know, it's a good way to see the world, and you know, even just the place you live.
It's true.
And how about you, Marcel?
You just give it a shot. You know, I mean, cycling is one of those sports that, you know, even if you're not racing, I mean, just riding is really, it's really great just to kind of get some fresh air and, you know, go out and see the city, see the community. It's also a great way to commute, you know, with gas prices and kind of the way the economy is going. So it's really a lot of fun.
And you, Austin?
I would have to agree with both Jacob and Marcel, but just like experience the surrounding area around you and just explore on your bike and see if you really have the passion or not. And if you have the passion, just keep riding a little bit more and a little bit more and get involved in racing. And there's many teams around that are willing to help young riders.
Well, you know, we are at the end of our segment and at the end of the show, and I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on, and especially you, Butch. And do you have any parting words for our viewers?
Well, I think this has been really an inspiring show. I think we can all implement some of what was said tonight.
If you want to find safe places to ride, you can look on the website and find some bicycle clubs that have rides for new and emerging riders. You can look at pwtc.com and you can find rides there, or you could go to www.nwbicyclesafetycouncil.org and look for some of the fall and winter rides that we may have posted on there. Remember, share the road. Look out for one another. If you're a vehicle, please pass a bicyclist with care. Look out for one another always. Obey the law. In order to obey the law, we always have to say, you must know the law. Ann, would you like to leave our viewers with some parting words?
Well, I think enjoy these fall days and get out and ride your bike.
And we want to thank you for joining us. And at this time, we want to invite Kelly and Steve to come on up here with us as we wrap up.